On an ordinary day, at a quiet street corner, a homeless man stood in front of Elon Musk's luxurious car. His eyes were filled with exhaustion and despair, yet they still sparkled with a glimmer of hope. He only asked for one thing. "Could you give me $1?" A simple question. But Elon Musk's response was completely unexpected. Instead of giving him money, Musk offered him an opportunity that would change his life. But how would that opportunity unfold into a journey full of challenges and surprises? Follow the story of a decisive moment where kindness and faith reached new limits. Under the warm twilight of Riverside, Texas, the streets became as bustling as a vibrant painting. Luxury cars honked. Pedestrians hurriedly walked by. But amidst that rushing flow, there was a lonely figure. James sat hunched on the edge of the sidewalk, his old, worn-out coat failing to shield him from the cold that seeped into his skin. His boots, battered by years of wear, mirrored the traces of a life that had passed without anyone remembering. A folded piece of cardboard bore a scrawled message. "Hungry? Can you spare $1?" That was all he could do, a silent plea for help in a vast world. James once had a different life. He used to have a stable job, a home, and a little hope for the future. But then unforeseen difficulties pushed him to the bottom, from losing his job to mounting medical bills he couldn't pay and, finally, a dark cloud engulfing his life, leaving him lost and homeless. But today, something felt different. As he gazed at the flow of traffic in the distance, his eyes suddenly stopped on an expensive car, a Tesla, gleaming as if it had just rolled out of a showroom, reflecting the golden sunlight from above. At first, he thought nothing of it. Cars like that passed by all the time, driven by people who never paid him any attention. But something peculiar made him look again. Suddenly, the car window rolled down softly, and James's heart felt like it might leap out of his chest. He stared intently at the person inside, his fingers trembling, his mouth dry. "No way, is that Elon Musk?" A fleeting doubt crossed his mind. But the familiar face of the tech billionaire stood out unmistakably. All the surrounding noise seemed to vanish, leaving only the sound of his own breathing echoing in his ears. An odd feeling surged within him, a strange mixture of desperation and a yearning for change. He stood up, his heavy legs pulling him forward, unable to stop. "What am I doing? Asking for money from someone I never imagined meeting?" Doubts flooded his mind. Yet he kept walking toward the car, his cold hands gently tapping on the window. "Just $1. Please." His voice was so faint it was barely audible. Yet it was enough to shatter the suffocating silence around him. That moment stretched on like an unhealed wound. James knew his words would be rejected, dismissed like so many times before when cold, indifferent eyes never lingered on him. But instead of turning away as he had expected, Elon Musk looked directly into his eyes. That gaze did not carry contempt or mockery but sincere curiosity, as if he was trying to understand the man standing before him. "What do you want me to help you with?" His voice was deep and warm, carrying neither impatience nor weariness. Musk opened the car door and stepped out with a calmness that seemed to awaken the world around him. James froze, unable to believe what he had just heard. In that moment, it felt as though all his hopes had condensed into a single, simple question. Yet it opened the door to an entirely new world he had never dared to dream of. James stood still, his heart pounding. He couldn't believe the words that had just come out of his mouth. Everything became blurry, as though time had paused for a moment. He was here, standing before the greatest man in the world. And now he was left with an indescribable sense of bewilderment. A foolish question, a naive request. Yet how could it turn into such a pivotal moment? Taking a deep breath, James held his breath, trying to suppress the tension rising within him. Everything around him seemed to be compressed in an endlessly drawn-out moment. Elon Musk stood there, without a hint of arrogance on his face, only a deeply curious expression, as if he were exploring every corner of James's story. "You must have a reason for asking that," Musk said, his voice steady and full of concern. "People don't easily part with their money, do they?" James swallowed hard, his eyes avoiding Musk's. "I just want to ask for $1, he whispered, his lips almost trembling. "Just $1. Nothing more." Musk didn't respond immediately. He simply looked at James quietly, a strange sense of calm enveloping them both. After a moment, Musk reached into his pocket. But instead of pulling out money right away, he stared directly at the sign James was holding. At that moment, James felt as though he was being scrutinized, not in the dismissive way others often looked at him, but with a genuine and kind attention. $1, Musk repeated, as if weighing the significance of those words. "Do you truly believe that $1 can change anything for you?" James froze, unsure how to respond. "I thought $1 would be easier. People might give, and I wouldn't trouble them for too long." Musk smiled softly. "You think people are more willing to help if the request is smaller. But not everyone thinks that way." He looked at James, his gaze seemingly searching for an answer not just in words, but in the essence of who James was. James felt a wave of unease rise within him. But Musk continued, his voice lowering, as though sharing a truth. "So you think $1 will change your life? Do you feel it's enough to transform your current situation?" James stood motionless, his eyes vacant, unsure of how to react to Elon's question. His entire body was taut like a string, as though one wrong answer could send him plummeting into an abyss. That single dollar in his hand was something far greater than its material value. It was like a glimmer of hope in a long, dark night. "Can I really change anything?" James muttered, as if he were challenging himself. $1 isn't enough to change anything. But maybe it will help me breathe a little longer." Elon looked at him, saying nothing, silently observing. Then, he slowly took out a large denomination bill and placed it in James's hand, as if he were handing him a key to unlock a door James had long lost hope of ever opening. James quietly stared at the bill, feeling as though time had stopped. He had never imagined he would have this opportunity. "Thank you," James said, his voice choked with emotion, though his eyes couldn't look away from the bill. Elon gently patted his shoulder, his presence powerful yet calming. "James, I want to ask you something," Elon said, his voice calm, each word lingering in the air. "If everything could change instantly, what would you do?" The question hit James like a punch to the heart. He stood frozen, his mind spinning. What would change his life? If he could start over, would he have the strength to turn his dreams into reality? I would start again," James said, his voice trembling, but his eyes glimmered with determination. "I'd find a stable job, a place to live, and from there, reclaim everything I've lost." Elon listened, then nodded slightly, but there was no smile on his face. "That's a reasonable choice," he said. "All you need is a real chance." James felt confused, wondering if that was the right answer. But before he could think further, Elon continued. "So, what's stopping you?" Elon asked, his deep eyes seeming to peer into every thought in James's mind. James hesitated, the answer clear in his head but difficult to voice. "Definitely money. And the system. This system doesn't create opportunities for people like me. When you've fallen too far, it's hard to get back up." Elon considered his answer, then spoke thoughtfully. "You're right. This system isn't for everyone. It's designed to preserve what already exists. But if you had enough resources to get back up, could you do it?" James felt a lump rising in his throat, like a smoldering fire burning through his mind. Elon's question was a challenge, yet it carried a hope James hadn't dared to express. Could I really do it? James asked, his voice shaky as he struggled to maintain his composure while the weight of doubt bore down on him. I wouldn't let this chance go to waste. Elon Musk paused for a moment, looking directly into his eyes, then gave a gentle nod. That's what I want to hear, he said, his voice steady but filled with encouragement. James sensed an ambiguity in those words. But before he could dwell on it, Elon continued. James, there are many people who think success comes from luck or grand ideas. But in reality, success isn't something that comes easily. Sometimes, success is simply about never giving up. It's about getting back up even when you've been beaten down. And I see that you've learned this lesson. James sighed softly, a bitter smile appearing on his lips. Maybe I've become more used to enduring than to winning, he said, his voice carrying unmistakable weariness. Elon smiled, his expression unchanged, but his eyes held empathy. That's why you're here, he said, as if teaching James something profoundly important. Resilience is something you can't buy. And sometimes, it's the deciding factor. You have that. Elon's words hit James like a powerful touch. He had spent so long living in the shadows of failure that he had lost faith in himself. But now, hearing those words, he felt a spark ignite within. A fleeting sense of confidence was enough to make him feel like he was no longer invisible. Elon stood up, his demeanor shifting to one of seriousness. I'm going to make you an offer, he said, his words solid and deliberate. Not just money, but a real opportunity. But that opportunity will only be yours if you're ready to take it. James felt his heart race. And for a moment, he couldn't fully grasp the meaning behind those words. What are you saying? He asked, unable to hide his confusion. Elon took a business card out of his pocket and handed it to James. When James looked at it, he saw only a plain white card with a name and a number. Nothing flashy. Just the utmost seriousness. Contact them tomorrow, Elon said, his voice calm but firm. Tell them I referred you. They'll know what to do. James took the card, his fingers feeling cold. But I don't understand. What are you giving me? He asked, unsure of what he had just heard. An opportunity, Elon replied simply, but his tone carried the weight of an unforeseen future. An opportunity to change. But whether or not you accept it is up to you. James felt his throat tighten, a heavy feeling in his chest making it nearly impossible to breathe. This opportunity could change everything. But at the same time, it was a risky step forward. Elon began to walk away, heading toward the car parked by the curb. But before opening the car door, he paused for a moment. Don't let this opportunity slip away. James, Elon said, his voice sharp but filled with genuine warning. It's the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around every day. With a gentle motion, Elon opened the car door and drove away, leaving James standing silently on the sidewalk, clutching the card tightly in his hand. His heart was a whirlwind of unexplainable emotions. This was the turning point of his life. And he knew, no matter what, this was the one chance he couldn't afford to lose. That night, James sat on the worn-out steps of an old apartment building, the dim light from a street lamp casting a faint glow. In his hand was the small business card, the words printed on it challenging his imagination. He wondered if this was some cruel joke or perhaps a scam. Elon Musk couldn't possibly notice someone like me, James muttered. But a part of his heart, one he had long tried to bury, started yearning to believe it. As the night deepened, the sounds of traffic gradually faded, leaving a serene quietness over the street. James looked at the business card once more and clenched it tightly in his hand. If I don't try, I'll never know, he told himself, a faint glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. The next morning, James found a payphone near a gas station. The phone's glass panel was smudged, and the receiver felt slightly sticky. But he paid it no mind. He dialed the number printed on the card, each beep making his heart race. After a long ring, a soft yet professional voice answered. Director Elon Musk's office. This is Sarah speaking. How may I assist you? James froze for a moment, his lips seemingly paralyzed. Finally, he managed to speak. Hello? My name is James. Mr. Musk gave me this number yesterday. He said I should call for instructions. Hello? James. Yes. Mr. Musk informed us about you. Can you come to our office in downtown Riverside at 12 noon today? James stood there, stunned, his hand unconsciously gripping the receiver tightly. I'll be there, he stammered. Wonderful. See you then. Sarah's voice remained calm and professional before the call ended. James placed the receiver back, his mind spinning. He wondered what awaited him at that place. At exactly 12 noon, James stepped into a modern office building in the heart of the city. Anxiety surged as he noticed how shabby his clothes looked in contrast to the sleek, polished surroundings. But no one seemed surprised or judgmental. When the elevator took him to the 15th floor, a young woman with a gentle smile was waiting for him. Are you James? She asked, her voice light but clear. James nodded, his throat feeling dry. Please follow me, she said, leading him down a long hallway bathed in natural light. At the end of the hallway was a large door leading into a conference room. Through the glass panels, James saw Elon Musk sitting at the head of the table, his eyes seemingly lost in thought. James! Musk stood up and extended his hand in greeting. Thank you for coming. James tried to return the handshake, but his nervousness made him feel slightly clumsy. Have a seat, Musk invited, his voice calm yet commanding. As James sat down, Musk got straight to the point. I don't want to waste your time, so I'll be direct. Here's a trial contract, he said, sliding a document toward James. The position isn't glamorous. Just an entry-level job at one of my facilities. But if you make the most of it, it could be a stepping stone to rebuild your life. James looked at the document in front of him. The words, clear and detailed, seemed to taunt him. He looked up, his voice trembling. Why are you doing this? Why me? Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, his gaze seeming to pierce through James. Because I see a spark in you that even you haven't realized yet. When I was young, someone believed in me, and it changed my life. This is my way of giving back. James stood still, his emotions surging like a tidal wave. Taking a deep breath, he nodded, a newfound sense of hope welling up inside him. James stood for a moment outside Elon Musk's office door, his hands clutching the file as if it were the only thing keeping him steady. When the door closed behind him, his eyes stung with an emotion he never dared hope to feel again. Not everyone gets a second chance in life, and James knew that well. I have high expectations for you, Elon Musk said, his gaze sharp but his voice laced with encouragement. Don't let me down. James tried to smile, but the emotion swelling in his chest made his throat tighten. He simply nodded, walking away without saying a word, carrying with him a feeling he had long forgotten, hope for tomorrow. The next day, James arrived at the address written in the file, a Tesla factory on the outskirts of Riverside. The factory was vast, its industrial lights illuminating every corner. The rhythmic hum of machinery served as a constant reminder that everything here operated with precision. He was issued a uniform, shook hands with his coworkers, and attended his first training session. The work of assembling electric vehicle parts required care and precision, something James's rough hands were not yet accustomed to. But he didn't complain. This was a fresh start, an opportunity he had never imagined having. The first few days were tough. His legs ached from standing too long, and his hands trembled after hours of work. There were moments he wanted to quit, but each time he received a small paycheck from this honest job, James felt as if he had achieved a victory. Gradually, he saved enough to rent a small room and began rebuilding his life from scratch. Initially, James's coworkers were a bit wary of him, but their attitude quickly changed when they saw his relentless dedication. "He's always the first to arrive and the last to leave," one coworker remarked. James became a living testament to the idea that with persistence, anyone could overcome adversity. Not content with just lifting himself up, James began thinking about others still trapped in the despair he had once known. After work, he often visited homeless shelters, bringing hot meals and old clothes. He sat down to listen to their stories, shared his journey, and encouraged them to believe that change was possible. A few months later, as James returned home after an exhausting day at work, his phone rang. A familiar voice spoke on the other end of the line. "James," Elon Musk said, his voice deep but full of strength. "I've heard that you've been doing exceptionally well. Not only have you rebuilt your life, but you've also been helping others." James couldn't hide his surprise. "Thank you, sir. I just think everyone deserves a chance to start over." "I agree," Musk replied, his tone growing more serious. "And that's why I want to offer you a new role. I'm planning a program called New Dawn, an initiative to help those facing hardships find sustainable career paths. I want you to lead it." James froze. The idea of leading such a major project filled him with both excitement and fear. "Do you really think I can do it?" "I don't just think, you've already proven that you can," Musk said, his smile almost audible through his voice. "You've shown it. James, now it's time for you to help others do the same." James took a deep breath, his eyes shining with newfound determination. "I won't let you down. I'll do my very best." The New Dawn program launched soon after, and James became the bridge bringing hope to hundreds of people. His story, from someone who had seemingly lost everything to someone who inspired others, continued to spread and transform more lives than he had ever dreamed possible. Years passed, but James never forgot the day his destiny changed. When New Dawn evolved from a simple program into a movement helping thousands who had lived in the shadows, he realized that the most important thing wasn't about himself, it was about what he could bring to others. The program no longer stopped at helping those who had stumbled in life. It gave them the opportunity to rebuild their hope and trust in themselves. James no longer had to look back to remember the times he had faced hardships alone. Now, he traveled across cities, meeting people who had been left behind, people who had experienced despair just as he once had. He shared his story, not to boast, but to prove one crucial truth: hope wasn't some distant ideal, it was something that could be passed on through a simple act of kindness. At a major event celebrating the 5th anniversary of New Dawn in Riverside, James stood before a large crowd. The golden stage lights illuminated his face, calm yet filled with deep emotion that his eyes could not hide. The people in the audience weren't just those who had faced difficulties, they were individuals who had rediscovered themselves through the program. James closed his eyes for a moment, then looked out at the audience and spoke in his warm, steady voice. "When I first stepped into this life, I had no one but myself. Tired steps, long days with no way out. But one day, I met a stranger. He didn't give me money, but he gave me something far more important: belief. It was the thing that made me realize that no matter what, I could start over." An unusual silence enveloped the hall. All eyes were on James, not because he was famous, but because his words genuinely touched their hearts. He continued, his voice full of depth. "Life doesn't always give us opportunities, but we can create opportunities for ourselves. And sometimes, all we need is one person to believe in us. Just one person. One person who can help us see the light, even in the darkness. When the speech ended, the crowd erupted into applause. James left the stage, but a warm glance from Elon Musk caught his attention. Musk approached, a sincere smile on his face, and patted James gently on the shoulder. James, what you did today wasn't just about sharing your story. It was about all of us, about the opportunities we can create for others. James nodded, his smile humble yet carrying a quiet pride. Sometimes, a small step can ignite a great revolution. Musk stood still for a moment, his eyes thoughtful as if reflecting, then replied, just like how you started with yourself. One action, no matter how small, can lead to unimaginable change. After the ceremony concluded, James stood in a quiet corner, his eyes gazing into the distance. From being homeless to becoming the leader of a movement, James's journey was a testament to the power of seemingly invisible changes. He knew that, sometimes, the greatest transformations in life begin with the smallest moments that we often fail to notice. A soft smile crossed his face as he recalled a simple question that had changed everything. That day, I didn't just ask for a coin. I received an opportunity. And I realized that just by giving a little hope, people can rise stronger than ever. One small action, yet it could change the world. James knew that when people came together to uplift one another, nothing was impossible. Stories like this would continue to inspire those who followed, reminding them that even the smallest light, if strong enough, could break through the darkness. If you feel this story has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss other amazing stories. Share this story with those you think will find hope and motivation in it. Thank you for supporting and being part of this channel. Please note that this is a fictional story created for the purpose of entertainment and delivering meaningful messages about resilience, hope, and second chances. The content of this video is not based on real events and is not intended to harm any individual or organization. This video is not responsible for any misunderstanding. Thank you for listening.